Okay, so we will go ahead and get started, everyone. I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Kayla Cross. I work here at Huron County Growth Partnership as a project manager in economic development. Um, I have had the pleasure of working on a few of these projects in the past 2.5 years that I've been here, but really economic development is a team sport. And so businesses and community partners, we need you to reach out. And so I thank you for joining us today and being a part of our referral network. So a little bit about Huron County Growth Partnership. We are a unified chamber of commerce and economic development agency for the entire county. We offer business and community support through connecting you to resources, free business advising, and networking and professional development events. And you can visit our website, HuronCountyOhio.com, to learn more. We just launched that a couple months ago, so we're very excited. And there's a lot of good listings there for grants and resources that we commonly refer people to. And then Huron County Growth Partnership is here to help grow our economy and community, support our businesses, secure resources, and make a name for our county and our businesses. Again, going back to economic development being a team sport, it's always a good time to call us, but on the next slide, there are a few specific times when businesses can reach out to us. So if you're making any major capital investments or hiring any new staff, we'd love to know and talk to you. But again, anytime is a good time to call. And then for our community partners, if you are working on any policy or planning that may impact businesses in your community, or you want a business mindset, we're available to help out with that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Erica, but I did want to mention again, if you just want to type all your questions for now into the chat box or the Q&A, I'll be monitoring and we'll ask Erica those at the end. So thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. So this presentation is geared towards businesses or companies like banks, attorneys, accounting firms that are working with businesses. So this does not necessarily, you don't have to own a business that can apply for this grant. You can take this information and use it to share with businesses. So I want to kind of caveat that. I guess I'll have you since I can't, can I click next? No, I think you have to do that for me. Okay. So I'm Erica Bowers. I am a director of project management over at Team Neo. I've been there for 8 years. I primarily work in Huron, Erie, Lorain, and Portage counties. And I also do attraction work throughout our counties, our 14 counties. So first want to kind of talk about who Team Neo is and why we come to the table. So we're the designated JobsOhio network partner. JobsOhio is the state level economic development organization. They control the liquor sales in Ohio. So they have a lease out on the liquor business. The revenues from liquor sales go to economic development through JobsOhio. There's a whole bunch of stuff that money goes to, but primarily it is dedicated to economic development. And that's what funds JobsOhio. JobsOhio has grants and loans that they can deploy into projects. And they also work hand in hand with the Department of Development to negotiate their incentives through the job creation tax credit and some road work development grant dollars. So as the network partner, they tap us to do their work in our market. So there's 7 regional partners in the state. Each of those partners work with the companies in their counties to find job creation opportunities and attraction projects, and then structure incentives working through JobsOhio to get those. So here's a nice little graphic. We've got how our partners all work together. You've got JobsOhio at the state level, you've got Team Neo at the regional level, and then we work with Huron County Growth Partnership at the county level. And then we get even more granular. We go down to counties or to cities and villages and other municipalities. So Team Neo, I kind of already covered this, but we are 14 counties. Those are the counties that we cover on the map. We include Huron County, which is why I'm talking to you today. And we again, if a company is looking for incentives, that is one of the things that we can provide through the state. We also have a few other strategies and capabilities, which I'll talk about in a second. Go to the next slide. That's our core strategy. So we work in the talent space. We help address and do research in the talent area. So trying to figure out where is the demand for workers, where are we upskilling those people, where are we graduating, are we graduating the right type of people? So we work a lot in the talent space, but more on the insights and collaboration, not necessarily in programmatic ways. We also work in the site space. So we help identify sites that are competitive for growth in primarily in the industrial market, because that's primarily where we play. So we don't do residential, we don't really do retail, but commercial and industrial. So we have a team dedicated to identifying sites, making sure that they're to a place that makes them competitive, and then marketing those sites nationally. We also have a team dedicated to industry insights. So we have dedicated team members who understand their industry and are connected to it and help both our local people understand the industry better, but also help us understand the industry better and what we need to add in our supply chain, what's important in our supply chain, all of that great stuff. And then last, we promote the region. So we go out nationally, internationally, and promote the Northeast Ohio region and its assets. And we also obviously do some in region things, but we also we take the name out there and do things outside of the Ohio as well. So those are our things that we focus on. And then of course we do incentives as well. Why do we think that it's important to market the 14 counties as a package, not Sandusky or Cleveland or these individual cities? And that's because as a collective region, we're the 15th largest in the US. So we're the largest we're the 15th largest market in the US, which is pretty powerful. We've got about 40% of Ohio's economy. You can see here, I won't go through them all, but we've got some impressive numbers that when we look at the 14 counties all together, that we can go to market and show that we're a unique asset. Next. So here's the key industries, and these are Ohio's key industries. So Northeast Ohio specializes in a few of these, but as a whole, when we're talking about incentives and the spaces that we play in, these are those. So advanced manufacturing, pretty much any type of manufacturing gets lumped under advanced manufacturing, unless it's specifically aerospace or automotive or something like that. And you'll see that we also cover those. So manufacturing, we can support aerospace, aviation, automotive, financial services, not like a standalone bank, but that one gets a little bit fuzzy, but the financial services we can support, not necessarily like retail bank operations. Food processing, so sometimes you'll see it agriculture and food manufacturing. Think about it in more of that wholesale food distribution, manufacturing type of space, not retail, your bars, your restaurants. We can't support that. But if you're selling direct to wholesalers, or you have a distribution network, you're selling online, e-commerce, there's some opportunities there. But generally, when we talk about food processing, think, in your backyard, you've got Pepperidge Farms. So that's food processing. Shale energy, petrochemicals, biohealth, information technology, logistics and distribution. And then our newest sector is our mill fed operation. So we have, as of a few years ago, we started working in that space as well. Okay, next. All right, so the stuff that everyone wants to talk about, incentive support. So we are the conduit for basically your incentives at the state level. So there's just some of the information since 2015. Here's our project wins, the job, and then associated job jobs created, payroll created, and capital investments made through the projects that we've supported with incentives. And so when to call Team Neo? Go back one. If a company is in one of the sectors that we talked about, one of those 10 sectors, and they plan on doing at least one of the following things, you could call us. And so these items that I've listed here are really the things that would make a company have a project. So if they're looking to buy new equipment or expand or renovate physical space, they're looking for a new building. If they need to add new hires for a new product line, or if there's new contracts and they're trying to scale up, new hiring could qualify. Training and existing new workers, again, associated usually with a new product line. And then if they're trying to innovate, so if they're trying to change the way they're doing something, and maybe they're doing some R&D, or they're pivoting to a new product line, these would all be reasons to call Team Neo. So if a company is just, well, I think that pretty much covers everything. There's very few instances where I would imagine someone would call us without having at least one of these things be applicable. So we have a variety of other grants, tax credits, and loans that we can deploy as incentives for businesses that might have that might be in an industry sector and have one of the previous qualifiers. But what we're talking about today is specifically the small business grant, and it's different than all of our other grants, and that's because this is geared towards small businesses, and a lot of the qualifications that we would need to go through for all of our other businesses don't apply here. So that's why we're going to specifically talk about the small business grant. But if you have a business that is larger and maybe doesn't fit into here because they're bigger than what we'll talk about, we can always look at other programs to see if that's a fit. So if you ever work with a business that has one of the qualifiers that we just talked about going on, one of those buzzwords, please reach out to us, reach out to Kayla and Sarah, and we will make sure that if there's an opportunity for us to support you, we will do so. So specifically with the small business grant, this is a JobsOhio program that was created in 2020 to really fill a gap in the market, which was a lack of financial incentives for these small and medium opportunities with businesses. And there's a ton of small businesses in Ohio, and a small grant like $25,000 it goes a long way. So they did create this program in 2020. It's changed over the years. So if you've heard about it before, it's a little bit different now than it used to be. And so we'll give you all the latest and greatest on it through this presentation. But it does offer $25,000 in grant money to small businesses that are looking to grow their operation. And an important fact here to remember is that this grant is reimbursement based, but it's not retroactive. So once you go through the process, you get approved, you get an offer letter, you fill out an application, then you can go ahead and spend money towards your grant. What we can't do is if you come to us and say, hey, I bought this piece of machinery last month and I want to have it covered under the grant, we can't, because it can't be retroactive. But it's also important to know that this is a reimbursement-based grant, because you do have to basically fund it and then get reimbursed later. So you have to have the cash or a line of credit to be able to make the purchase, and then you get reimbursed later. And then if there's any questions on that at the end, I can definitely answer questions on what that means. Next. All right, so for the small business grant, some qualifiers. So the company has to have been in business for at least 1 year. So there needs to have at least 1 year of operating history. Ideally, we like to see 3, but the minimum requirement for this grant is 1. You would have to show financials, so a P&L statement and a balance sheet for at least 1 year. You need to have revenue between at least 100,000 and you can't be over 25 million. So it's a pretty wide range in what is acceptable in this grant, but that really encompasses those small businesses and up to medium. So 100,000 at the floor, 25 million at the max, and that is in a 1 calendar year period. So, and then third, the company has to be increasing in at least 10% employment over the next 3 years. So we look most all of our projects are usually like a 3-year window. For the small business grant, it is 3 years. So you would have 3 years to meet your commitment on jobs. So let's say your business has 30 people, 30 FTEs is the way we look at it. We don't look at headcount, we look at full-time equivalent. So you take part-time, overtime, anyone that's on W-2, doesn't matter if they're salary or hourly, you would count all those hours, divide that by 2080. That's how we determine how many jobs you actually have. You would need to be growing by at least 10%. So if let's say you had 30 FTEs working for you, you would need to hire at least 3. So if a company comes to me and says, we're looking to hire 5 more people over the next 3 years, we currently have 30. I'm like, great, you qualify. If you come to me and say, I'm looking to hire 2 new people over the next 3 years, I have 30 employees currently, you're not there yet. So again, 10% more is always better, but we don't want you to overcommit on something that you don't think that you're going to be able to hit. And then fourth, the company has to have eligible cost. So some eligible, this is not an exhaustive list, but it is probably the 4 biggest buckets that we see. So if a company is looking to build a new building, add on to their existing building, make improvements to their existing building, or actually buy a new building, that would qualify as an expense. Machinery and equipment. So if you've got some fixed asset equipment, so things like things that are easily moved from the site typically don't count. We would consider that more of a rolling stock, but larger machinery, for example, we don't consider computers machinery and equipment, but we would consider a server a machinery and equipment. Of course, if you have like a big laser machine that you're trying to buy, that qualifies. So machinery equipment, there's some gray area there, but again, that is typically a qualifier. Third, industry specific software. So if you're in an industry that needs a specific kind of software to run your operation, that can be qualified. What we don't qualify would be like if you're a company and you wanted to get your payroll software included. That's not industry specific, unless of course you're an accounting firm, which then maybe it could be industry specific. So again, a little bit of gray area, but that is the third bucket that we typically see. And then the last one on this list is training. So if you're going to need to train your existing employees and or your new employees, then training hours, time spent training your employees on the floor, is considered eligible. And then of course, like we already mentioned, the business needs to fall into one of the 10 industry sectors. So it's not really it is a criteria, but I kind of separated it out. And on the bottom here, you'll see that if the business is owned by an underrepresented population, which means someone it's a woman-owned business, a minority-owned business, a disabled person-owned business, or a veteran-owned business, then the business can qualify for another $25,000. So essentially, the business could apply for up to $50,000 in grant funding. Again, you're going to have to show that you've got at least $50,000 of expenses. So if you are trying to get $50,000 in the grant, you've got to have at least $50,000 in eligible costs. And you need to be able to show that that's what you're going to spend it on. All right, next slide. That's it. Questions. So I tried to keep it really high level and brief, because if you guys had questions, I wanted to be able to answer them. A lot of times people just have really specific questions and it's just easier to talk through them. So wanted to open that up to anyone who has questions on this grant or other things that Team Neo does and other grant opportunities.
Erica, I have a question, and then Sydney has one, but going back to the industries here, can you explain the biohealth one? What kind of businesses would qualify under that? Would a hospital count?
No, so no hospital. So it really needs, typically when we talk biohealth, it's companies that are in like the bio medical devices type field. So hospitals wouldn't count. health spas don't count, and mostly they don't count because they're retail, they're population survey, we consider it retail. So I did see a question, would mental health counseling fall into the biohealth? No, unfortunately, that's more B2C or B2C, direct to consumer. Not we play more in that tradable business to business space.
Okay. And then Bethany, I see also, will we get a copy of these slides with Erica's permission? Yes, I can send these out. And then the webinar is also recording, so that'll automatically get sent out to you guys after this, as well as we'll probably share it on our website. And then I think Sydney's question is also about the industries. What would qualify as an information technology industry sector company/business?
So think software companies. So if you've got like Highland Software over in Westlake, that's an more of an information technology business. We've done work with some like businesses that offer software services to companies, so kind of like an outsourced IT firm that they do work all over the country. That could count too. We've done businesses like that before. I think what's important there is there a product that they're selling, right? So if they have a software that they sell, or they're creating something that's in that space, that's typically how we would qualify it. But if it's a tradable good, whether that's physical or through the computer, those things are eligible. If you have a question on a specific business, though, happy to look through it.
Are nonprofits eligible, Erica?
So it's an interesting question. They're not eligible. Typically nonprofits don't have that tradable sector portion to them. So by being a nonprofit and not having that doesn't exclude you. We've actually done a project with a nonprofit recently. It's just very atypical because typically nonprofits don't have that that tradable sector product. Any other questions?
I can share a little bit too. The reason we kind of hosted this is because the guidelines are a little different for this year. So originally, and a lot of you are from the area, the Huron County and Norwalk area. So in the past, it has kind of been dependent on your zip code, the zip code of your business. But that's actually a new guideline for this year, is that the zip code requirement was dropped. And so now our entire county is eligible. However, you do have to meet the other qualifiers, including the industries, the revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, and we've done some projects in Huron County. So even before when eligibility was a little bit more limited, we did still have some really good projects. And so I see that this will grow. We want to get the word out there that it is available. And to that point, basically any business is eligible for 25,000. And then if you have that other qualifier with the underrepresented business, you could be eligible for 50. So essentially double that. Sydney, I see you saw, you had a question about the reimbursement. It's once the company requests reimbursement and it's approved, it typically gets to them within about two months. It's kind of hard to answer that because that's assuming they had everything in correctly. There was no back and forth with our compliance team. But yeah, 2 months typically from when they request reimbursement. And I like to tell companies, if you were to talk to me today and we were able to get you an offer, get you through the application process and everything, which can take, less than a month to get through, get an offer, get the application submitted, have it approved. That is really quick. Then there's an agreement period. So there's like contracts that need to go through formal approvals. So that can add a little bit of time. And then they're eligible to request reimbursement once those contracts are fully signed and executed. So some companies, if you're planning on making a purchase really soon and you get the grant and then you immediately make a payment on your purchase, it's probably not going to be 2 months before you get your money. It'll probably be a few more months than that, just because you have to go through the full process. But if you got through the process and then you spent your money later in the year, I would say, 2 months is probably a good estimate on timing. Do businesses need to fall in one of these industries, or if we're offering our services to this industry, B2B, does that count? So one of the changes in the grant is that, I think I understand your question. If you offer a service that is serving businesses in one of the sectors.
Yeah, so like collectively we'd work with retail, and then we work with a lot of these sectors. So it, like, if you looked at it percentage wise, it might be like 25 retail, 75% in that other commercial space. So I was just wondering, because as you mentioned, I have talked with Mr. Cavanis, and I think there's some holdups there. So I'm just trying to figure out what I'm missing.
Yeah, well, we could talk offline too. Typically, if you're so like we've worked with a coffee shop. They have a retail front, they have a coffee shop, but then they also roast and sell coffee, and they have a distribution, they wholesale it. More than 50% of their sales were through the distribution business, not the retail. They were able to separate out the difference. And because their retail sales were less than 50% of their overall business, and they were over 100,000, we were able to qualify that. But we could talk offline too. I know we've been working with you for a while. Another question here. Can you go into the qualifying projects for renovating a physical space? Would you recommend or require our ownership of the space? So as long as the company is the one that is incurring the cost, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're leasing or if they own the building. So if they're looking to tenant improvements typically are more of that cosmetic stuff that doesn't count. That wouldn't be considered a physical improvement. But if a tenant if they are leasing the building and they're going to be the ones on the hook for upgrading the HVAC or replacing some windows or electrical upgrades or whatever, then yeah, that could qualify. It's just a matter of who's actually paying for the eligible costs. So yes, you don't have to own it. You do not have to own the building to be eligible for it. But if you're not going to be the one incurring the cost of renovating it, then it's not really an eligible cost. You have my contact information. So if anyone does have questions, it's always, I tell everyone this, I'd rather say no and have a chance to look at the business and figure out if we could make it work than people there being a yes out there that we weren't able to deliver because they didn't bring it to us. So I'm happy to vet anything. I can tell you pretty quickly if it's a yes or no. So happy to work with anybody.
Great. Well, thank you, Erica, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Next steps, I would say reach out to us if you're interested. Again, we can, just determine if you qualify or not. But there's also kind of a simple form that you fill out in order to start the process that we can send to Erica. So you'll get this recording automatically, and then I'll probably reach out again with that form. And feel free to ask any questions either to my email or to Erica's. So thank you so much. Any other questions?
Thanks, Kayla, and thanks, Sydney, for all the questions. And good questions, like Sydney and Meg.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.